There's something about 3 a.m. Some call it the witching hour, others call it nonsense. But for most, it's the time when dreams twist into nightmares and reality begins to blur. For one woman, it was the moment her quiet life began to unravel. And it all started with footsteps. Soft, slow. At exactly 3 a.m., Samantha Morris lived alone in a cozy two-story house on the edge of town. Her neighbors were far enough that she couldn't see their porch lights from her bedroom window, and that's exactly how she liked it. She worked from home as a freelance editor, spent her evenings reading horror novels, and went to bed by midnight like clockwork. Her life was predictable, peaceful, and uneventful, until the night she heard the footsteps. It was a chilly October night. Rain pattered lightly against the windows. The house was quiet except for the low hum of her air purifier. Samantha had just turned off her bedside lamp and closed her eyes when she heard it. Creaking. Faint but distinct. The unmistakable groan of wooden floorboards beneath a weight. She opened her eyes, heart immediately pounding. Her bedroom door was closed. Her windows were locked. She lived alone. For a moment, she told herself it was nothing. Maybe the house settling. Maybe her mind playing tricks on her after reading too many creepy stories. She turned over and tried to fall asleep again. But then came another step. Closer. Deliberate. Measured. Like someone slowly walking across the hallway outside her room. She sat up, pulse racing. The hallway light, which she always left on, flickered beneath the door. Another creak. Closer. She reached for her phone, but it was dead. Panic surged. With trembling hands, she slid out of bed, her bare feet touching the cold wooden floor. She crept to the door and pressed her ear against it. Silence. Then suddenly, 3 sharp knocks. Samantha stumbled back, gasping. She stared at the door, expecting it to burst open. But it didn't. There was no sound at all now. Not even the rain. Grabbing the nearest object, a metal desk lamp, she slowly turned the knob and opened the door. The hallway was empty. The light above flickered once, then held steady. She stepped out, heart thudding like a drum in her ears. She checked every room, bathroom, guest room, study, nothing. No open windows. No signs of entry. Trying to calm herself, she returned to bed and convinced herself it had to be a dream. A sleep paralysis episode maybe. Her overactive imagination. She laughed nervously and buried herself under the blanket, eventually drifting off to sleep. The next night she made sure her phone was charged. She even left the hallway light off, thinking maybe the flicker was what spooked her. Midnight came and went without incident. But then, at exactly 3 a.m., she heard them again. But this time they weren't outside the door. They were inside her room. The sound was faint but unmistakable. A light shuffle. A floorboard creaked near the foot of her bed. Samantha's eyes flew open. She dared not move, barely breathing. She couldn't see anything in the dark, but the air felt heavy. She felt watched. She turned slowly, reaching out for her phone on the nightstand. The screen lit up. 3:01 a.m. She clicked on the flashlight and pointed it toward the foot of her bed. Nothing. Me. But the footsteps stopped the moment the light turned on. That night she didn't sleep at all. By morning she was exhausted. Her rational brain took over. Perhaps a rodent, she thought. Or the old plumbing. Or maybe she was sleepwalking. She laughed to herself, shaky and unconvincing. But she went out that afternoon and bought a baby monitor with a motion sensor. She set one up in the hallway and one in her room, just in case. That night, she stayed up until 3 a.m., curled up in bed with the light on, watching the screen of the monitor. Nothing. Silence. 3 o'clock came and went. She sighed in relief. Maybe whatever it was had stopped. Then, at 3:07 a.m., the hallway monitor blinked. Motion detected. The screen switched on. A grainy black and white image appeared. The hallway. But then, a shape. It moved at the edge of the screen. Slow, deliberate. A shadow passed in front of the monitor. No sound. No footsteps. Just a shadow that lingered, then disappeared. She bolted up and ran to the hallway. Me. The monitor still blinked. She rewound the footage. There was again just a few seconds of shadow. It didn't look like a person. Not exactly. It was tall, thin, distorted. Like something half-formed. That day, Samantha called a locksmith to double-check every lock and window. She installed new cameras and sensors. She even called her best friend Rachel and asked if she could come over for a few nights. Rachel arrived that evening with wine and a sleepover bag. They laughed about the whole thing, but Samantha's laughter was hollow. That night, they both went to bed in the same room, the monitor facing the door. Rachel was skeptical but supportive. She promised to stay up with her. At 2:59 a.m., they sat wide-eyed, staring at the monitor. 3 a.m. Nothing. 3:01 a.m. Still nothing. And a sound. A step. From the attic. They looked at each other. Rachel's smile vanished. Samantha stood slowly, heart racing. The attic door was in the hallway ceiling, with a pull-down ladder. Samantha grabbed a flashlight and opened the hall closet for the attic pole. Rachel followed close behind. She reached up and pulled the door down. Us fell. The ladder creaked as it unfolded. She shined the flashlight into the dark opening. Cobwebs, boxes, old insulation. No movement. Don't, Rachel whispered, clutching her arm. Let's just call someone tomorrow. But Samantha was done being scared. She climbed the ladder slowly, flashlight shaking in her grip. Each step groaned under her weight. The attic was freezing. She shone the light in every direction. Nothing. Then her light caught something in the far corner. Small wooden chair. And next to it, a pair of worn leather shoes. Child-sized. Facing the wall. Samantha's breath caught in her throat. The shoes were dusty, but the floor around them had footprints. Bare footprints. Leading toward the center of the attic and back. She heard a creak behind her. She turned quickly, but Rachel was still below, looking up with wide eyes. Suddenly the attic light, one she hadn't turned on, flickered on by itself. And for the briefest moment, she saw someone standing near the far wall. A little boy maybe. Wearing old clothes. No eyes. Just deep hollow sockets. He smiled. The light blinked out. When she turned the flashlight back on, he was gone. Samantha scrambled down the ladder. Rachel caught her, both of them trembling. I saw something, she gasped. A boy. Think. But not normal. He was wrong. They didn't sleep that night. They stayed up until dawn, lights on, heartbeats like drums. The next day, they called a local historian to ask about the house. It turned out that 70 years ago, a family had lived there. A couple and their son, Daniel. One night, during a harsh winter storm, Daniel vanished from his bed. They searched for days, but he was never found. The parents were devastated and eventually moved away. Rumor had it that Daniel used to sleepwalk. He'd often be found walking around the house at night. Around 3 a.m. Samantha's hands shook as she listened. That night, she and Rachel prepared to leave, but something stopped them. Curiosity. A sense of unfinished business. They wanted to know more. So they waited. One last night. They sat in the living room with the monitor, the cameras, and the attic door firmly shut. It was quiet for a long time. But at exactly 3 a.m., the baby monitor lit up. And this time, the footsteps came not from the hallway. Not from the attic. They came from behind them. Inside the room. Samantha and Rachel froze in place, barely breathing. The baby monitor buzzed softly beside them, glowing with eerie light, but it was the sound behind them that paralyzed them both. Slow, deliberate footsteps crossing the living room floor. Not outside. Not from the attic. Inside. With them. Rachel's eyes widened, her mouth slightly open, too terrified to speak. Samantha gripped the flashlight in her lap, her fingers white with tension. She slowly turned her head. The room behind them was dark, but not completely. A faint glow from the hallway light gave shape to furniture, and to something else. A shadow moved near the far wall. It was small, hunched, moving unnaturally, as if its limbs didn't quite bend right. It stepped forward, the floorboards creaking under its weight. Samantha turned on the flashlight and pointed it. Nothing. Just the chair. The fireplace. The wall. The sound stopped instantly, replaced by a deep silence that pressed on their ears. "I swear I saw it," Samantha whispered. "I did too," Rachel replied, barely audible. Then the television, unplugged for days, screeched to life. Static filled the screen, hissing like 100 whispering voices. The monitor beside them blinked again. Motion detected. Kitchen. They looked down at the screen. A blurry figure stood just at the edge of the camera's view. Its head twitched toward the lens before the feed cut to black. Rachel grabbed Samantha's arm. "We have to leave. Now." They scrambled to the front door, but as Samantha reached for the handle, her hand recoiled. It was ice cold. Frost spread across the knob, seeping into the wood around it. The room temperature dropped suddenly, their breath turning to mist. And then a voice, distant, childlike, whispering, "Don't go." The lights in the house flickered violently. Upstairs, a door slammed. Then another. Then footsteps, running now. Not one set but several. Like a group of children racing back and forth. Laughter echoed faintly, but it wasn't playful. It was sharp, cruel. Samantha backed away from the door. "It doesn't want us to leave." Rachel looked around wildly. You think this is Daniel? I think it used to be." They rushed upstairs, hoping to confront it, to end it. Maybe it was foolish, but running away didn't feel like an option anymore. The house wasn't letting them go. They burst into Samantha's bedroom. The walls were covered in handprints, tiny grayish smudges smeared across every surface. The mirror above the dresser was cracked, with something written across it in reverse, as if written from the inside. "I never left." Rachel turned toward the window. "We'll go out through here. Screw the door." But the moment she touched the curtain, the room shifted. Everything went quiet, then black. The house was suddenly plunged into pitch darkness. Even Samantha's flashlight flickered and died. They stood in total silence, paralyzed by the absence of light and sound. And then, the breathing began. "Whoa, what?" Right between them. Rachel screamed. Samantha swung the dead flashlight wildly. A cold, clammy hand brushed her face. Light. Everything snapped back on. The walls were clean. The mirror whole. No handprints. No writing. Rachel was on the floor sobbing. Samantha knelt beside her, whispering, "It's okay. It's over." But it wasn't. Because that night Samantha dreamed of the attic. Of the little chair. Of a boy standing in the shadows. And in her dream he spoke. "You're in my house now." She woke up screaming. That morning Samantha decided she needed real help. She contacted a local paranormal researcher, Dr. Harlan Pierce, a quiet, serious man with thick glasses and a worn leather notebook. He had investigated dozens of supposed hauntings, and though he rarely found evidence, something about Samantha's voice on the phone convinced him this case was different. He arrived that afternoon and began by walking through the house. He took EMF readings, asked about the history, examined the attic. After hours of silent study, he finally sat with Samantha and Rachel at the kitchen table. "This is no ordinary residual haunting," he said quietly. "It's a presence. Intelligent. And angry." "Daniel?" Rachel asked. "I believe it's what's left of Daniel," he replied. "Children who die violently or suddenly sometimes leave behind fragments. But this isn't just a fragment. It's growing stronger. Feeding on your fear. Your attention." "Why now?" Samantha asked. "I've lived here for almost a year. Nothing happened before this week." Dr. Pierce nodded. "Spirits remain dormant until something stirs them. You said you've been reading horror stories late at night. Thinking about the past. Installing cameras. All that attention. It may have woken him." Samantha felt a chill run through her. "How do we stop it?" He opened his notebook and showed them a page with symbols. "We don't stop it. We help it move on." But it'll resist. That night, they prepared for the ritual. Dr. Pierce set up candles, drew chalk symbols on the attic floor, and placed an old toy train, something similar to what Daniel might have played with, in the center of the circle. As they gathered upstairs, the air grew heavy. The candles flickered. The room dimmed unnaturally. Dr. Pierce began the incantation. Latin phrases echoed through the attic. Samantha held Rachel's hand tightly, both of them trembling. A sound like wind rushed around them, though the attic window was sealed. Then footsteps, low, around them. But no one moved. Samantha's breath caught in her throat as she turned. The little boy was standing just outside the circle. Hollow-eyed, smiling. "Why did you leave me?" he asked, voice low and sorrowful. "We're here to help you," Dr. Pierce said, voice firm. The boy's smile vanished. "Liar!" The lights blew out. Candles extinguished. The attic exploded in sound. Screaming, laughter, running feet. The chalk symbols lifted into the air and scattered like dust. The toy train melted into ash. Suddenly, Samantha was alone. The attic was empty. Rachel was gone. Dr. Pierce was gone. Everything was gone. She stood in the dark, spinning, panicked. "Rachel!" she shouted. "Dr. Pierce!" A voice echoed from the darkness. "You left me too." And then footsteps, running toward her. Samantha screamed. But then light. She was in the living room. Morning sun streamed through the windows. Rachel was beside her on the couch, eyes wide, tears running down her cheeks. Dr. Pierce stood over them, pale and shaken. "We were pulled in," he whispered. "He didn't want to leave." Samantha clutched Rachel's hand. "Is he gone?" Dr. Pierce nodded slowly. "I think he let go." They checked the attic. The chair was gone. The shoes too. The house felt lighter, warmer, quiet. That night, for the first time in days, Samantha slept peacefully. But in the early hours, just before dawn, she dreamed of Daniel. He stood at the end of her bed and whispered, "I'll come back when you forget." She woke with a start, breath ragged. The clock read 3 a.m. The house was silent, but for a moment, just a moment, she thought she heard footsteps.